Today's call is brought to you by the power of one more. Yes, that's the topic for the day. Write it down. The power of what? One more, Christina Williams. One more, Rick Kay. One more, Miss Saylor. One more. The power of one more. Our speaker today hails from Fresno, California. He's a fire captain. He's used to running in fire buildings that are on fire to save people's lives. He's a husband. He's a grandfather as well. He's a community leader. He loves hunting with his bow and arrow, and he does excellent barbecue. I can attest to his barbecues. I'll just fly down, eat his barbecue, and fly right back out. He can really put it down. Without further ado, regional director from Fresno, California. I believe it's going to be him. I'm not sure if his lovely wife is going to be with him today. She'll probably be at his side. The great Mr. Chris King.
Oh, awesome, guys. Man, it's so good to see everybody on the call today. And it's so nice when I get on a call and everybody else is better looking than me. So I'm like, I'm in the right spot. All the pressure's off. So awesome, guys. Look, we just been out here in California and like everybody else trying to figure things out and having fun at it and enjoying it and, realizing that no one's doing everything perfect and we're just going to keep moving forward. So, because, we got one more. Like Mr. Thomas said, it's the power of one more. So I got a couple of videos and I got some stories to tell you guys that are impacting our lives. I come out of the field of fire, and that was kind of my job, was impacting someone's life, but it wasn't impacting people's lives that were like you guys sitting behind a screen and taking notes. It was impacting people's lives that were in dire straits, and it's different, but it's the same. And what are we doing? What can we do to impact people's lives? So with that being said, here, share my screen here, and we'll get moving. So share some sound, so it'll all be good. So you guys see my screen okay? You guys might see a little bit of everything else, but there we go. So I'll put this aside here, and then let me do this here. Okay. I got my coach on the side here giving me information, so bear with me. So, okay, guys, the Power One, a couple of videos I'm going to show you guys. Little disclaimer, though, there are some foul language in there, but it's a couple of words. But the impact of what these videos can do is pretty important. I tried to set it up so it didn't I just couldn't do it. So, ACN, we get so much training. I mean, this call Monday through Friday and in the evenings on Friday and Saturday nights is giving us information. We can get on our back office, we can get on our website, and we can get all the training ever out there. I mean, ACN puts it on. So I'm going to kind of take a different approach here. Okay, so I'm going to try and not the emotions, but what's behind the emotions, the drive that puts us and moves us forward. Okay, so with that being said,
you know why kids love athletes?
I don't know, because they screw lingerie models.
No, that's why we love athletes. Kids love athletes because they follow their dreams.
Well, I can't dunk.
No, but you can cook.
What are you talking about?
Your resume says that you minored in French culinary arts. Most students, they work in the fryer at KFC, but you bust tables at Il Picatore to support yourself. And then you get out of college, and you come and you work here. How much did they first pay you to give up on your dreams?
27 grand a year.
And when were you going to stop and come back and do what makes you happy?
Good question.
I see guys who work at the same company for their entire lives, guys exactly like you. They clock in, they clock out, and they never have a moment of happiness. You have an opportunity here, Bob. This is a rebirth. Now, if not for you, do it for your children.
So he had the opportunity to rebirth. He had the power of one more day. All right. Going to all of us, what was your price? You know, my price was different than Miss Catherine's price. Mr. Thomas doesn't have a price. Mr. Thomas didn't sell. Mr. Thomas sold out for work for 9 months. We've heard that story before. We hear it a lot, but it's to impact us on what's possible. Okay. You know, some of us feel like it's too late. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. But remember, there's a countless number of people out there who've given up. And those are the people we're going out and we're talking to. So have that in mind. They've got the power of one more. And I'm going to explain that to you a little bit more here. You know, you talk about people who sell out for their dreams for a job or whatever. I had probably one of my best friends growing up since 8th grade. And, you know, I was trying to talk to him about let's do something extra. Well, let's make some money. We can go because we have these places that we always talk about. Ooh, let's go hunt, you know, caribou up in Canada. Let's go, you know, here and fish, and let's do this. And you know what he told me? He told me, you know, I'm not going to do all that. And what I realized is dreaming is just as good as doing it. You know about taking all the win. We're talking best friends, and for someone to tell you that I didn't know what to say. It impacted me so much. But that whole situation is a powerful vacuum, and it'll suck you in a second. So it's important to be cognizant of when people talk about that. That's why the self-development, everything's so powerful. I'm showing you the book here, 20,000 Days. Mr. Thomas gave me this book right here. To Christian Rose from Al Thomas. Enjoy. God bless. You think I let that go to waste? No, I read that book. It's full. Come see it. It's full of highlights, notes, everything else. And then here's what's cool. I let the team read it, and they got their color highlights and their pencil in here, so you can learn even more from what you didn't catch. That's huge. Okay? So, but here's the thing. You're not too old. You're not too day. You're not too any of that. What if you had the power of one more chance? A day, whatever you want to call it. What if you had one more? And it didn't matter what your age was, your sex was. What would you do? What would you do knowing? So I got another video here. A lot of us here on the here, whether you liked him or not, you're a fan of Kobe Bryant because of who he is and what he did and what he represented, really. And let me do this. Let me get this one ready. Okay. Now, pay attention to this, guys, because this was one of the more powerful videos I've seen in a long time. And this is what talked about the power of one, because we all have it. Today is our power of one.
Kobe was scheduled to do my show 6 days after he passed.
Oh, God.
And deeper than that, I was with Kobe the week before he passed away. Let me tell you the story about this because I think it's pretty profound about the One Moors. We had a volleyball tournament. Our daughters played volleyball together. And it's if you have a kid who plays volleyball, you all are going, yep, I get what that is. These are long days and noisy days. So this thing starts at about 8 a.m. All the dads are there. The last match was 10 p.m.
Oh, God.
Yeah, dude. And I'm the last dad in there except this other guy in a black sweatsuit with white stripes on it. And he's about 6'6". And it's Kobe. And we've been around each other many times at these tournaments. We're the last of the two dads left. And so the tournament ends. His match was on a different end of the court than my daughter's was. Something happened. I have no idea why I did this, brother. I watched him this day. And I was on the other end, and I watched him. He had his baby in his left arm, his little one. And he was rubbing the back of his daughter that was playing. And literally I went, I don't hug Bella enough. Look how affectionate he is. It just stood out to me. And because it stood out to me, his outward affection, I watched him, bro. And I watched Kobe walk out of the gym that day with this baby and his arm around his other one. And I watched him walk out. And he obviously stood out because he was so tall. And I can picture him right now, Tom, walking out of that door for the last time. 6 days later, he died. And I wonder, see, if you want to know the power of one more, it's when I take it from you and you can't have it anymore. I wonder if someone would have whispered, Kobe, when he got in the car that day, 6 more days. How would that week maybe have been different for him? What would he have said? Who would he have loved? Who would he have reached out to? What would have mattered to him? How about the Saturday before? Kobe, 1 more day. And he's getting on that helicopter. Kobe, 1 more hour. See, it hits us when I say that. And there's a whisper happening that you can't hear. Tom, 8 more years, 18 more, whatever it is, there's a whisper. We forget, we're going to die. Napoleon Hill says, begin with the end in mind. What if you did that with your life? What if you began with the end of your life in mind and worked it backwards? Bro, my favorite thing in the world was to golf with my dad. My favorite thing, man. We're both no good at golf. But was my hero in a golf cart with me for 5 hours a foot away. And the conversations. Watch my dad walk a cart. Do you know what I would do, bro, for 1 more round of golf with my dad? 1 more time. Hey, Dad, good putt. Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it, Eddie? Put his arm on me. High five. You know what I would do for that? How would you act if you started to think about all the elements of your life, like Kobe's last 6 days, Kobe's 1 more day, Kobe's 1 more hour, me getting that back with my dad? What if you started to look at the relationships you have in your life like it was the last time you had the conversation with him, the last time you get to hold Lisa's hand and
Jesus,
look into her eyes, right?
That, fuck.
Right? But how much more precious does she become? Maybe it's the last podcast, the last interview. How much more precious would it be? How much more engaged could we, as engaged as we are? That next meeting, that conversation with, is it Gerson over here, right? The conversation with him, man. See, when we begin to distill down and we realize, yeah, there's a power to 1 more because they're not promised how many we have. And so that day with Kobe it just burned it into my soul, man, when I watched him. And then to see 6 days later, he was gone. That time with his family was so precious. And so I would just challenge everybody, if you want to know the power of 1 more, it's when I take it from you. And there's a power and there's a blessing that you get 1 more in your life. You're going to get another chance to talk to Lisa. You're going to get another great dinner with her. You're going to get another show. Those listeners have another day to change their life. They have another opportunity to do 1 more. They have another opportunity to make their family proud of them. They still have more time. They don't just have 1 more day probably to be the one in their family. Life is beautiful. It's precious. And sometimes we only have an appreciation for it in its absence. Sometimes we only have an appreciation for the power of the 1 mores or the people in our lives when we imagine their absence. And so I would just ask everybody to consider that.
Power of 1 more. Did you guys hear that? Sad we don't get that whisper in our ear so we know. We can tell everybody. We can do what we need to do. So we have to put the power of 1 to work. So, I mean, but how cool would that be if that was your superpower? To have that. So how would it affect you? How would it affect me? How would it affect any of us? What would you do if you did hear that whisper? What would change? What will change? Who would you reach out to, spend more time with? Who would you love on more, be more affectionate with? How much harder would you work your ACN business if you knew? And the reason why I bring that up, guys, there's a gentleman that I know. He's SVP now, no names. Some of you heard his story before, and you might know who it is. But his father was in the business with him, and his father found out he had terminal cancer. So Dad starts working the business and got as far as he could intentionally because he knew he was passing away. He got that position all the way to team coordinator at the time, which is RC. And then when he passed, he left his legacy to his grandson. How powerful is that? Utilizing the power of 1 more. So, here's my thing is why wait to start living the life that God designed for us? Why not live life knowing our days are numbered? Why don't we live life to its fullest all the time without regret? When I was getting in fire and I first took the my emergency medical technician, EMT certification, the instructor had us read a book called Death. And that's what you deal with in fire, right, in ambulance. It's just part of the job description. What was interesting, I don't have that book anymore, but it interviewed people who had given, you've got 3 months, 6 months, whatever it was to live. And it was interesting how everyone accepted the term in the book and talked about what they wish they would have done. I haven't parachuted yet. Something that's kind of on my bucket list. Rose won't go with me, so I'm going to have them taper to me so she can't say no. But if I got cancer, I'm dying, I'm bleeding, I don't care. Push me out the plane. I want to experience that. You know what I mean? Make life happen. Don't let life make life happen for you what you want. Don't let life just happen. Okay? So this is the book, going back to the book Mr. Thomas gave me. 20,000 Days and Counting. So do you have any idea of how old you are when you're 20,000 days old? Mr. Thomas does. You're 50 years old. 50. So as of today, I'm 21,351 days old. Okay? So the idea is like what the guy talked about is with the end in mind, reverse, come back with the things that you're going to do and plan out. You understand that? This book is amazing. I recommend you get it and read it. It'll tell you how to do that. But have the end in mind, or the end isn't going to mind. It's all there is to it. So there's a guy in another book, and in fact, I gave Mr. Thomas this book. It's interesting, guys, because there's no book to it. It's just an Audible. Okay? And so if you got Audible, it's the principles of authentic power. Okay? And I gave it to Mr. Thomas for him to get it and read it. We've tried to download it. There's a PDF, but it's not the same. It's kind of a workbook. But his name's Joe Caruso. Highly recommend. This is a lot deeper. But this guy was 18 years old. He was diagnosed with testicular cancer, which at that time only had a 3% survival rate. 3%. Okay? He was advised by his doctors. There's an I love this, experimental stuff, right? He said, hey, we got some experimental stuff that might work, but you got to sign paperwork that if you die because of it, we're not liable. Right? He's like, what do I got to lose? So he signed paperwork. So he ends up making it through it, right? So here's his story. Years later, right? He had an individual reach out to him and asked if he could talk to his sister who wanted to be a better speaker for ministry, right? When they got together, the gentleman said that he had heard many speakers in his lifetime, but that Mr. Caruso was one of the best speakers he had ever heard before about asking questions. So Joe got, Mr. Caruso got a little inflated, a little ego, and asked the gentleman what it was that he said that had so much impact in his life. And here's what the gentleman told him. I don't remember exactly. Right? I just remember your story. It was because of Joe's story that this gentleman continued on saying, I want to do something, but I would always keep pushing it off and said it later. And he eventually became a CEO and started making lots of money. So then he finally set it up and went and talked to him. And one of his goals was to accomplish it. He's had in his life. In 2 weeks, was being a minister. And in 2 weeks, he was going to be an ordained minister. And it was because of Joe's story. Because Joe had one more day and was able to tell that story. So guys, you all have a story on here. Mr. Thomas has said it over and over again. People talk about it. We have a story. Who's hearing your story? If you get the power of one more and you don't tell your story, who's missing out? You or someone you were able to impact? Okay? If our goal is to impact as many people as we can, are we doing it? Keeping quiet? Being a secret agent, IC and IBO? Okay. I'm holding back. And we don't have, okay, another one of the stories real quick. This guy, so Mr. Caruso was speaking to individuals and who were 49 years. Now here's the numbers. They had to be 49 years or younger who were CEOs or presidents of corporations that make $5 million minimum a year. Okay. He was speaking to them. Then after that, they were going to go and take a tour of the White House. So that's how prominent they were, right? 50 minutes of talk. When you talk to that many people like that, you're not making $5 million a year. It's a little intimidating, he says. But here's what it is. This is what Mr. Caruso's always practiced. And it's something I believe we can put in our lives now. Bring all you are to all you do, and that's all you need. Bring all you are to all you do, okay? So he focused on being the best, and he could communicate his story out there. So when he was done, this gentleman, Mike, right? Shorter guy, stocky, kind of like Mr. Caruso, but just not as stocky, had a scruffled voice, and he raised in his hand. And he said, you have a question? The guy said, yes, sir. And he said, yeah, Joe? He said, yes, sir. He said, yeah, that cancer you said you had? See, Mr. Caruso used his story to tell that he wished he never had to go through anything like that again, and important on sharing it, okay? So here's what he did. So when he talked about the cancer, and the guy was asking him that cancer, he says, what does he say here? Excuse me here. Let's find it. That cancer you had? He said, yes, sir. He said, was that a blessing or a curse? How do you answer a question like that? Because he says, he looked around, everyone looked around, looked back at him, and he'd never been asked a question like that before and didn't know how to respond. I mean, that's a crazy question. And of course, he wanted to be intelligent about it. He goes, he didn't have a response plan. So in being true to bringing all you are to all you do, he decided to talk out loud. Here's what we're talking through. He said, well, sir, he says, frankly, it was one of the darkest periods of my life. I don't know if I can go through it again because I don't know if I have the physical strength. I'm not as young as I was at 18. I don't have this family surroundings that I did when my mother and father and my brothers and relatives were around. He goes, I'm not sure that my body can handle it because I'm all scarred up. I never wished that I would die, and I never prayed to live, but I remember this prayer a lot. I kept saying, God, please let me know if this is worth it. So I have to say, sir, that was the darkest curse of my life. And in regards the content and the same that I have to say, it was the greatest blessing I've ever had because it forced me to take a look at the spark of a flame of eternity that is with what we call life on this earth. Okay? So here's what he did. So his story, and that guy later comes back and then kind of hollers at Joe, Joe, you know what my cancer is? And the guy kind of realized he was a little loud because there's people around. And he says, you know what my cancer is? And he says, what? He says, my son's disabilities. But because of Joe's story, because of what Joe went through and him realizing that he could also do that, the guy realized that his son's disabilities was the greatest gift. And now that son, now Caruso said, and I know now that son's being loved on more so than he would have from before. So guys, that's just impacting people's lives. It's doing it. It's stories behind what is out there. I mean, we all have stories on here where we impacted someone's life. How Mr. Thomas, story after story of how he impacted someone's life, bringing all he is to what he is to the game. That's it. It's taking advantage of the opportunity we have of the power of one more. Every single one of us on this call had the power of one more today. What are we going to do with it? What are we going to change? So keep in mind, guys, like he says, keep in mind the end game. Napoleon Hill said it. Mr. Smith says it in his book. Mr. Emmett says it in his interview. have an idea of when the end is, or the end can always come, and do something. Like let that be the drive to not wait till tomorrow to do something, not wait to make a phone call, not wait till Monday to get together. Not for us, but not wait till Wednesdays to come together and make phone calls. But get busy, guys. Take that, use it. Let it set a fire underneath you that tomorrow night might not be here, and you need to do something. You retire your moms, get your family financially free. So with that being said, Mr. Thomas, I want to thank you, sir, for letting me be on the call. I hope someone got the power of one, something out of this. And I appreciate you, sir, everything you do.